it's sales tax, it's business tax, it's franchise tax board tax. There's a lot of different taxes, and really I was getting put out of business. I pretty much had cease and desist on my short-term rentals. City of Los Angeles, City of Santa Monica, Malibu was coming out with regulations. So I could see the writing on the wall. I wasn't going to be able to survive on my income much longer. I had a little bit of savings, but I knew I would blow through that in a year or so. So I really had a ticking time bomb on my hands where I wouldn't be able to support the properties I had, and I had to pivot. And when I discovered the tax incentives in Puerto Rico, where you can basically earn interest, capital gains, and dividends completely tax-free, I decided within, I think, 3 months of arriving in Puerto Rico that Puerto Rico needed a real estate group. And apparently I was the one to start it, even though I still don't speak much Spanish at all.
Driven by her pursuit of lifestyle and financial freedom through hospitality and short-term rentals, she made the move from California to La Isla del Encanto, Puerto Rico. So how has life on the island been treating you, Kathryn, Morea?
Thank you, Jen. Thanks for inviting me. You went from Puerto Rico to California, and I went from California to Puerto Rico. So we have that in common. We just went the other direction. So, I moved to Puerto Rico in 2020 during COVID. And, there's so much about the island I love and island life. And now that it's been 4 years that I've been here, now it's like, okay, I know some of the downfalls of living on an island too. You can't always get, supplies as easy, like when you're doing construction projects and things like that. On the other hand, the beaches, oh my God. I remember why you would never want to get in the water in Malibu. I'm like, come to the beach. And you're like, no, it can't compare with the beaches in Puerto Rico. You don't understand. You were right. Like the beaches in Puerto Rico, oh my gosh. And the rivers and waterfalls too. Like, took me a couple years to make it away from the beach because I loved the beach so much. And then when I went to the mountains, I was like, oh, this is awesome too. So that's really one of the great draws of Puerto Rico.
Yes, I'm happy. I'm happy you discovered the paradise there.
Yes, it is gorgeous. It is gorgeous.
Yeah. Still feel like home, and I'm glad that now it has become a home for you, and not only for you, but your real estate business too. So
exactly.
Tell me a little bit about what happened. So you made the decision to move to Puerto Rico, but there was many factors. You were very successful handling short-term rentals. Tell us about that story and how you ended in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, so I started doing short-term actually in, it was like the end of 2007. So this is before Airbnb. This was, I was just doing real estate full time, and I basically ran out of money. And so I was like, how can I make more money with the assets I currently have? And I put some drywall up over a dining room that had its own entrance, and I used that as a short-term vacation rental in Venice Beach, and it was really successful. And so then I did it again and again until I had like on average about 9 at any given time between 2008 or so until, or maybe 2009, by the time I got up to 9 to about 2020. So yeah, so that worked really well. It got more and more competitive as Airbnb came along, and more apps and more people discovering, the great thing about short term. And so it did get harder, and eventually, cities started cracking down on it. And the other thing is California, it's very litigious. It's very heavily taxed. There's a lot of rules and regulations. It almost felt like the government is just trying to put you out of business at every turn, especially in the short-term rental market. So, when I really started looking at what I wanted in my life during COVID, which made a lot of people pivot, and it made a lot of people really reevaluate what they were doing going forward. Working from home and, telecommuting started to become a thing. And, and I had just gone through a divorce or, personal breakup of all my businesses with my partner, romantic partner of 30 years. So I was really starting over in so many ways. And I thought, I don't want to be in this litigious, red tape, taxed to death environment. Like, where can I go where I can, have a little more freedom to do short-term rentals if I want to, but really get, pay less taxes and figure out a way that to have my lifestyle by the beach and do it, somewhere more friendly to what I'm trying to accomplish. So, at the time I ended up in Puerto Rico for a tax seminar, and I started, looking at my options, and I thought, what, this could be a good starting over place for me. So went back, sold everything, and moved a couple months later.
I love it. Getting fabulous at 60, right? So you go from a place where you're being taxed heavily, where you're making good money, but the government is keeping, or the IRS, Uncle Sam, is keeping a lot of that. So you decide, you know what? I want to build more wealth. I want to continue to have a great lifestyle. What are those requirements? And you find out a different area, and it's not in the US, but it's a Commonwealth, which allows you to have a lot of the same benefits that you have in the States, but with better taxes.
Yes, I mean, and it wasn't just the IRS, mind you, it's the IRS, it's the state of California, it's the city of Los Angeles, it's, it's sales tax, it's business tax, it's franchise tax board tax. I mean, there's a lot of different taxes, and really, I was getting put out of business. I mean, I pretty much had cease and desist on my short-term rentals. City of Los Angeles, city of Santa Monica, Malibu was coming out with regulations. So I could see the writing on the wall. I wasn't going to be able to survive on my income much longer. I had a little bit of savings, but I knew I would blow through that in a year or so. So I really had a ticking time bomb on my hands where I wouldn't be able to support the properties I had, and I had to pivot. And when I discovered the tax incentives in Puerto Rico, where you can basically earn interest, capital gains, and dividends completely tax-free to the government of Puerto Rico and tax-free to the IRS. And I'm like, wow, that actually, I could maybe live just on interest. I don't need as much money there because the properties aren't as expensive. The rents aren't expensive. Some things are more expensive actually, but at the time that looked like, okay, I could actually just essentially retire and live in this place by the beach, oceanfront, and have the lifestyle I wanted without as much overhead. And it wasn't so much a move to like do things financially or grow. It was more of, what, I can take a step back and not be so active in managing short-term rentals and doing all this stuff. I can just coast. And that was very appealing to me. So that was the idea. That's not exactly how it worked out, but that was the plan.
It never does. It never does, but it gets you closer to what you want. And
Yeah.
and I have to commend you for that. I mean, you reinvent yourself. You're fabulous, right? In many aspects. And we will tap into the business side on how you have take these ideas and implement them in Puerto Rico, and what you have done there to grow the community, to bring awareness about the opportunities of investing. But I want to talk a little bit personal here, right? Because you have shifted your life in so many ways. And I know that even more than before, you look amazing. You look glamorous. I know it's the sun, but also there's another things that you are doing at 60 that they're changing your life. Tell us a little bit about Kathryn.
Oh, that's funny. When my relationship started to really break up and crumble in mid 2018. And then we were, battling for assets and such. It was very litigious, very not amicable. Unfortunately, I mean, I would have liked it to have been amicable and for us to work it out, but it wasn't. And so for nearly 2 years, there was this, all this lawsuit going on. And in the end, after mediation, I ended up with certain things. He ended up with certain things. During that time, I really used food and alcohol as a coping mechanism. It was so sad and so stressful. And every day was just like another bomb getting dropped on me, from the lawyers. And I just remember like just coping through fast food and sweets and, and drinking a lot of wine and things like that. Now, it took me a while to kind of find my footing again. Now, moved to Puerto Rico kind of to wipe the slate clean and start fresh somewhere else. But still, I was drinking. I never felt like I was addicted to drinking, but it was definitely a habit for me to drink. And in 2023, last summer, one day, I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to try not drinking anymore, see if it helps my quality of sleep, if it helps my quality of life. And I just stopped. I just never looked back. So I don't drink. I haven't been, I've been sober, I guess, for, I don't know, 13 or 14 months or whatever it is. So that worked. And you know what I did with the sobriety is I just gave myself permission to eat whatever I wanted and not think about calories. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to cut out alcohol, but I'm not going to worry about also dieting or cutting out, carbs or sugar or anything else. I'm going to drink, fruity, tropical, extravagant drinks when I go out to a bar and when I go with my friends. I'm still going to indulge in the calories. I'm just not going to indulge in the alcohol portion. And so that worked pretty well. Just weaning myself off, but not letting myself not have the social experience. I still go wine tasting. I still go to the distilleries, still doing the social part of it. So that was one thing. And then around March of this year, so 6 months ago, I guess, I was kind of lamenting all the stuff I used to have when I was married and, all the properties I had in California and my friend wrote me an email. My friend Christy wrote me an email after I came back to Puerto Rico after a visit with her. And she's like, you're not going to get your old life back. Stop looking behind you, look forward, make the habits that you want to have now. Like, don't wait for a vacation or for, whatever you think is going to be in your future that's going to rescue you somehow. Like, whatever those habits are you want, start them now. If you want to go to a coffee shop and sit there and read the paper like you used to do in 2007, then go to a coffee shop and read the paper. Like, whatever it was I was lamenting about. And so I actually took that advice very literally. And one of the things was I used to be very regular about going to the gym, and I was very dedicated to my fitness, and I'd really let it slip, especially like in 2022 and 2023. I just, I wasn't doing anything except maybe a little cardio. So I had a gym membership, so I just started going. I just started going. And then every day I went, and now I've lost almost 30 pounds.
Wow.
And it's changed a lot of my outlook on just, how I feel about myself and how I feel, in my clothes and in social environments and in networking events, just everything about, what I'm presenting as a 60-year-old woman and how much better it feels. But I didn't know what a difference that would make. But between the sobriety and the going to the gym and getting strong and healthy. And then the other thing was in May, I found a doctor here in Puerto Rico that does hormone treatment. So bioidentical hormones. So I started doing that, and I could not believe the difference in energy, in passion, in desire for life. Like, I can tell when I go to the gym, I have more strength. I can tell when I want to do something business-wise, the desire to show up, to go network, to go to a Zoom call, to just be present. And when it starts to wane, I can tell it's waning. This is like the fountain of youth, So it's been a combination of a number of different things, but they're all cumulative. So yeah, I don't think I even told you about the hormones, and that's a fairly recent thing that now I'm like, oh my God, I would never let my body go without hormones, which are such an integral part of your physiology and how you feel. And as we age, we lose them. And there's stigma around whether or not it's healthy, but it is so healthy to have bioidentical hormones in your system like you did when you were 30 or 35. And to not put that in your body is to really do yourself a disservice. So, yeah.
Yeah. I love how you have pivoted. I can feel it already, Kathryn, more vibrancy, more happiness, more joy in your life. I already see it on you. And I think that what has been incredible is the journey that you have taken in all of this. You were brave, and you say, you know what, I am worth it to build the life I want. And because of that, I'm just gonna leave the past behind, and I need to cut that. I need to cut the past. I need to leave the emotional baggage that is causing me to attach myself to an exit like alcohol and food, to do it unconsciously. right? And I think you break through those chains, and that is allowing you to really live your life in a fabulous way at your 60s, and you're
Yeah.
sharing that with the world. And in fact, you also have an Instagram page where I have seen that you share this. What is your page? And I will make sure I put it in the description.
Oh, thank you. So it's kind of a marriage of my California origins and my Puerto Rico lifestyle. So it's Kat, K-A-T underscore the underscore Cali Rican, like a California Puerto Rican. So Kat the Cali Rican is the name of
Aw.
my and hopefully you can find that okay. But it's been really fun sort of working to get more traction with Instagram. It started just being like, I would post the occasional networking meeting, and then I would post my workouts, like mostly to keep myself accountable. Cause I figured if anyone that I knew was watching me work out one day and then I didn't post something for a couple days, they must assume that I had stopped working out or I wasn't being consistent. Now, they, whoever they are, probably don't care at all. And they're not even noticing because we're all into our own world and we're doing what we're doing, right? But in my mind, I was telling myself, I need to be accountable to anyone who's following me so that they see that I'm consistent in my work. So the mind game that I put on myself to be accountable was helpful for me. So I've continued to do it and just share it. And I found that I have inspired other people. And when I find out that I inspire people by posting, that's just like an extra benefit, right? Like I'm doing it for me to hold myself accountable. But when other women, especially women who are in their 50s or 60s, or, you know, who've hit menopause or perimenopause and going through that, knowing that you can have like a rockin' body at 60, I think it gives us hope. And so it's nice to, when someone says like, oh, I'm inspired, I'm starting to work out now. And it's like, oh, really? That's such a dopamine hit for me. It's awesome.
It is. And in fact, you mentioned it. I think you mentioned Christy, which I have the pleasure to know too. And I think as women, not only we need to talk more about hormones and the things that impact us physically and emotionally, but how our communities help us and challenge us to be better, to get out of our comfort zone. And you have done something wonderful, Kathryn. You learn all of these things, and we will get into the business in a bit. But you learn all of these things in real estate. You go to Puerto Rico, you start building from scratch your lifestyle, but you recognize the need for a community and you go ahead and put a community together. Tell me about Rio Rico. If you think I don't know, I know.
Ah, thank you. You know what? I'm going to turn on my AC.
Okay.
I turned it off. So let me get that going again, because here in Puerto Rico, we need our ACs.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, so you know, in California, and I'm from, you know, Santa Monica, LA area, there were so many real estate groups, networking groups, RIAs, you know, real estate investor associations, you know, bigger pockets meetings in person, fee before investor, buy investor, you know, there were so many options to go and meet any day of the week. You could find something in either LA or Orange County or somewhere within, you know, an hour drive or so. You could go network with other investors. And I found that really helpful. It became my like social network for myself as I was going through divorce, like just finding my footing and just getting out of my house, getting out of my own way. Even if I didn't have a lot to contribute or I wasn't there for a specific purpose, but you know, a lot of my friendships revolved around real estate. And when I moved to Puerto Rico, I was shocked. There was no real estate group on the island, not in Spanish, not in English, not even a Facebook group that I could find. Like I didn't find any real group. And of course it was during COVID too, which made it really crazy because nobody wanted to, you know, gather and everyone was afraid of, you know, catching things. But I decided within, I think 3 months of arriving in Puerto Rico, that Puerto Rico needed a real estate group. And apparently I was the one to start it, even though I still don't speak much Spanish at all. But, you know, I didn't let that stop me. Like I wanted to have a group that I could network and, you know, share resources. And every now and then, probably every week, every month, I go, why am I doing this? am I gonna keep doing this? But then you just like, once it started, like, it's not that much work to just keep it going. And then people need it so much and appreciate it so much. And we have about 600 or I don't know, 650 people in our WhatsApp chat. In Puerto Rico, like everything is WhatsApp. So having a big chat where people can share lenders, suppliers, contractors, housekeepers, agents, projects, deals, and all of that, it's all in the WhatsApp chat. So that's, I think, very helpful for the whole community. So I'm proud of that and proud of the relationships that people have made through meeting at our Rio Rico meetings once a month, or the deal makers breakfast clubs that we have once a month as well.
Now, talking about deal makers, because I know you also are a driven force, or you drive a lot of initiatives. I know you're investing in Puerto Rico and you have done a couple of projects. There has been an entire journey and a lot of experiences. So how is your bed and breakfast doing, and what kind of other deals you're looking into right now in the island of Puerto Rico?
Yes, when I came to Puerto Rico, I had no intention of actually buying property in Puerto Rico. And I sort of put together the real estate group more of like, I wanted a social network and I wanted to meet people who also did real estate. And that was the way I knew how to meet other people and, in whatever environment I'm in. So, I invented this real estate group, founded a real estate group. But it wasn't really because I wanted to buy or acquire real estate at the time. But I started meeting people who do real estate investing in Puerto Rico and started seeing the numbers and the opportunities. And in some ways, being in Puerto Rico is kind of like going back in time. If you could go back in time and buy real estate like in the 80s or in the 90s, like, wouldn't you do that? Like, knowing what you know now?
Yes.
So there's no real MLS in Puerto Rico. So running comps or even finding properties for sale is much more casual and personal. It has much more to do with your relationships and much less to do about analytics. Of course, there's analytics involved, but it's harder to get the data. And while some people hate the fact that it's very difficult, there's opportunity and difficulty. There is opportunity. And so if you can wrap your head around the fact that you're not going to have some of the tools that you have in the mainland US, you can see that the cap rates are higher, the numbers are better. Financing is much harder, but prices are, in comparison in any metro area, like, the prices are better. You're going to get more bang for your buck here. So, if you're willing to deal with some of the inconveniences of Puerto Rico, there's money to be made. And so when I saw the kinds of properties you could get at the prices you could get them for, and the comparable rents that you could get, or short-term rents, I couldn't help myself. Like, I didn't make it very long in my whole, like, I'm just going to be passive and not really do anything. It didn't last more than a couple months in Puerto Rico. So yeah, so I bought a small fourplex to make a bed and breakfast with. We rehabbed that. I did that with two partners. One of the money partner is from California. It was a shell, like, it was just a cement concrete shell. There wasn't even a roof on one of the buildings. There wasn't a second floor. Like, it was like just the shell of the outside four walls, but the top where the roof was and the middle where the ceiling was to the ground floor unit were both gone and had been gone for years. There's like a bathroom sink just suspended, hanging out in the middle of nowhere, like against one wall. We turned that into a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, a 3-bedroom, 3-bath, I think, and a studio and a 1-bedroom, and then sold it. Made a little over $300,000 profit on that deal. It was a lot of work. It was a year and a half or so of work and remodel, and we were running it as an Airbnb, and we ended up selling it. We were going to do the tax credit play, which is I don't think I've mentioned that. The tax credits for hospitality projects, and now even for multifamily projects in Puerto Rico, there's a lot of boxes to check. But big picture is that if you buy a property that's going to be used for hospitality and you apply for the tax credits, you can get up to 40% of your purchase and rehab costs back in the form of tax credits that you can then sell. So, you know, imagine you buy and spend $1 million on a property. Between the rehab and the purchase and the first year operations, you could essentially be getting 400,000 back in tax credits and sell that for 90 cents on the dollar. So it's kind of like getting a huge discount on your properties if you can check all those boxes. And it is a lot of work. Don't think it isn't. So we had started that process. We were going to get a bunch of money back from the tax credits. We ended up selling it cash. Great. Also bought a big parcel of land with 2 partners, 45 acres, had 8 houses on it, had 2 finished houses, sold 2 of those houses already. We still have all the land and the unfinished houses. So that's another project we're working on. And then I've got a bed and breakfast, which is 12 rooms in Miramar, in historic Miramar. We had to go through some historic approvals, and now it's a fully operational bed and breakfast that I'm actually in right now. This is one of the murals on the wall. And yeah, so we bought that at the end of 2021. It's been operating for about a year now. Yeah, I also bought a hotel and sold that to a guy named Jerry Norton. He's a big YouTube star. A lot of people know Jerry Norton and Pace Morby from the Sub-2 community. Sold that, seller financed in 2022, the end of 2022. So we were starting to rehab that, and then we ended up selling that. So, oh, and I bought a triplex. I bought a little triplex. Those units are all rented. So I rehabbed that. All in all, that took me, you know, off and on like 1.5, 2 years or whatever of you know, doing it kind of piecemeal and here and there. But yeah, so those units are all remodeled and that's cash flowing. So I think that covers it. I think that's all the stuff that I bought in Puerto Rico.
Since when and in 2 years, I just want to go shopping, not shoe shopping, but house shopping and real estate shopping, right, Kathryn?
I mean, yeah, like I bought that for $80,000, that little triplex. And yeah, it's tiny. It's a tiny little triplex, but you know, like you can't buy things in California for $80,000, certainly not a triplex. I don't think anywhere in California can you do that. So even as bad as it was, like I would still do that again.
Yes, not, and if you can, probably you don't want to be there. Or
Yeah.
even close to it, because there's some opportunities in the outskirts of in certain towns, but it was a very challenging environment. Plus, as you mentioned, finding suppliers, finding materials, keeping the security of the properties in some of these areas in the States is very challenging.
Yeah.
But Puerto Rico allows you to extend your buck, it's how they say it, right?
Yeah.
Extender el peso is how they call it. It's a saying, and it's how you get the most out of your money, right? Because you work really hard to earn your money, but you want your money to work hard for you. And
Yeah.
sometimes putting the money in the bigger investments in the States, although the money is working really hard, the state, the IRS, and everybody wants a piece of that money. So how do you learn to manage that so at least the money stay at home and you know you don't pay any more penny than what you have to? And
Right.
it sounds like that was the opportunity you were able to find in Puerto Rico. So now, for people who are looking to, let's go with women. For women who are looking to do a change like you, Kathryn, what would be the advice you will give them if they decide to go to Puerto Rico? Tell us about that journey, because I know it's an entire conversation, but I think it
Yeah.
would be great to hear some of the challenges you have to encounter and how you overcome those.
You know, I think it's not just Puerto Rico, but I have good friends who are arbitraging US dollars, living in other places like Thailand and Medellin, Colombia, and Mexico and other places. And you find that after you leave your little cocoon of wherever you were in the US mainland, you find that there's a whole world of people who are, you know, like expats is not really a word that applies in Puerto Rico because we're still part of the United States, but you know, the expat idea, right? The big term of expat, whether you're in, you know, Mexico or Thailand or whatever, like the idea that you can earn either by telecommuting or retirement. Like I met so many pensioners from Canada living on the equivalent of about US $1,200 a month. And they're living in Medellin, living a very, very good lifestyle in Medellin. And there are few places in the US where you could live a good, healthy lifestyle for $1,200. So yeah, the idea of arbitraging the US dollar, I think it's a really potent concept. And if there are people who aren't like absolutely entrenched in where they are because of, you know, family reasons or, you know, certain things, there's a lot that you can do remotely. Like wholesaling can absolutely be done remotely. Lending can be done remotely. So, you know, there's all kinds of parts of real estate or other things that people might be doing for work that can be done remotely. And if you can take your job, whether it's a W-2 job or, you know, something in real estate, and move that to some place where the cost of living is half or less than what it would be in the US, you don't have to work as hard to make your life so much better, right? So I think it's a really interesting concept. And I see it now that I'm gone from the mainland, like just how used to like, this is your life and your eyes are opened when you live in another country. And even though Puerto Rico is quasi another country, because it's still, you know, you have some of the protections of the US, but on the other hand, you don't have all the conveniences. Like I am constantly having to translate forms from Spanish. Like I get notices from the government for taxes or whatever, and they're only in Spanish. Like unlike in California where most things come in English and Spanish, that there are things here that are only in Spanish, especially when you're on voicemail or something and you get a recording. And there, I mean, what do you do with that? I don't know. Like I'm learning Spanish, but hearing it on the phone when you can't watch someone's lips, it's hard. I would say for someone thinking that maybe that's something that they want to do is move to Puerto Rico or to some other country, that, you know, spend time. Like, don't necessarily do what I did. I just felt like I was really needing a change, and I felt like I had to do it or I wasn't going to do it at all. Like I had to do it fast or I was going to back out of it. But it's probably not the wisest thing to do. My advice for someone else would be, you know, go dip your toe in and spend a month, spend 3 months. Don't sell everything. Don't cut the tie, because you might really hate it. You might really find, I mean, I find that sometimes when I get off a plane in Atlanta, Miami, New York, Austin, like, because I always have to fly back to California to keep visiting my friends there. And and it's not a straight flight. So I'm always getting off somewhere, right? And when I get off and I'm in, you know, Miami or Orlando or wherever, I get off the plane, and when I start to hear English, I get really like mournful and like I miss it, you know, like I miss my culture and my language, and I find myself just going like, oh, I understand them here. Like, oh, I miss that, you know, now that I've been in a mainly Spanish speaking place for so many years. Like when I see grocery store signs that I can read, it like I get a little like homesick, you know?
It doesn't change, because it goes for me the other way too. As soon as I go back to Puerto Rico, it feels like home still. You know, you understand people welcoming. And then when I go back to the US, there's pros and cons. And I don't think we ever let that portion go. I think that's part of us, ingrained.
Yeah.
But what is beautiful about that is your ability to pivot and to shift to other cultures. It just give you an
Yeah.
advantage that other people cannot have if they don't go out of their cocoon and experience other lifestyles in different countries.
Absolutely. Like right now, I don't have a fear of like, oh, if I went to Thailand and lived in Thailand, like I could do that. Like that's not a scary thing. It's like, oh, you know what? Maybe I'll just do that part. Maybe when I'm 65 to 70, I'll go have that adventure, right? Like that, it's not off the table. Once you jumped once, and you know what it's like because you moved from Puerto Rico to Los Angeles, then from Los Angeles to Austin. And because once you know that you're capable of moving and starting over and building a whole new life, it's not intimidating at all. It's not the end of the world. if things crash and burn in one place, because you're like, it's okay, I've done this. I know how to do it. I know how to make friends. I know how to start over again in another place. And there's some exciting adventure in all of that, right? So
Yes.
also like just having the knowledge of what it's like in another culture, it's really funny. You start to realize how US centric so much of the world is. Like, you know, I notice things like just YouTube, you know, shows I'm watching. When you start to watch someone talk about, oh yeah, when, you know, when you're trying to fix, you know, when you're trying to make these curtains, all you need to do is go to your local Michael's or whatever, and they'll say some store that we don't have, you know, and then you realize how, like, how easy it is when you're in the US. You just think like, oh, everybody has, you know, this grocery store or this supply available to them at all times. And not everyone does. So when you live in a place where not all those things are available to you, you have more empathy toward the rest of the world. You know, you're just dense and clueless when you only lived in one place and you had all of that at your fingertips and you didn't realize the logistics or the, you know, the difference in culture. And then, you know, you're not so like obtuse. I think being in a totally new place makes you a little more empathetic with what's going on in the rest of the world.
Yeah, it does. It does. And I think that that's what it make it very beautiful because our empathy increase, right? We understand that US is blessed because it has so many commodities. Things are easily accessible. And I don't think people who haven't visited other countries and live in there and in those countries understand. So it
Yeah,
makes you appreciate the beauty and also at the same time, I know, for example, in Puerto Rico, yes, you don't have Michael's, but grandma or the auntie do a lot of these finishes. And it gives you a completely different perspective on how to do things and how to really connect with people to get things done. And
yes,
and it's something I love about my culture, and I'm telling you, I miss that portion of it. It
right.
sometimes it makes things very slow. It does. You want to get things done, but it takes forever. And in
Yeah.
the US, you can make them faster, but also the connection, the human connection that is developed while you're trying to achieve things, it's a completely different level. And I have to tell you, that's something I really miss from my country.
Yeah. No, it's true. This is relationship island. It's all about, you know, who you know, and not just about, you know, rushing through to get it done. So it's both frustrating and endearing.
Yes, yes, that's a perfect description. And Kathryn, you're so endeared to me. So
Well,
thank
you
you
know, Jen,
again.
it's so funny because I remember when we went to I Survived Real Estate back in either 2008, 2018 or 2019. And, you know, we were driving to Orange County together with Deb, and we were, you know, changing our clothes in some restaurants so we could go in our beaded ball gowns and our high heels and look all perfect when we got there. And I remember just chatting with you guys about all I was going through in this litigation and just how terrible it was. And just like, I don't know if I was crying, but in my mind, I remember myself just being in tears. It was just such a horrible and sad time in my life. And it's really funny now to be talking to you, you know, 5 years later and be like, that's a whole different me. That's a whole different lifetime, you know?
Yes, and I can see that, Katrina. I can see your joy again and how the best version of yourself it's coming up, right?
Yeah,
Kathryn Morea was great, but now it's even greater. She has found her voice at her 60, fabulous, and now she's sharing with the world and continues to rock it out there. So, Katrina, I
thank you.
really want to thank you for joining us and sharing your experience as a woman, as a real estate investor, and in your transition to Puerto Rico. I will make sure that whoever wants to connect with you, see the description, and I will put in the description below your Instagram and other information on how to connect with you and with Rio Rico. So thank
Thank
you so
you.
much.
Yes, and I just want to say one more thing before we close out. I have an Instagram, which is Kat the Calorican, but I've also started a YouTube channel, which is more of the personal journey that I'm sharing about, you know, my divorce and starting over and, you know, beauty tips and gym tips and, you know, some very personal things about my own journey. If anyone is interested, I really just started it. There's only like a dozen videos at most, but that's Silver Linings Life. And you'll find the link in my Instagram. So I'm on Instagram every single day. So if anyone wants to reach me, I will definitely answer a message on Instagram. So feel free to reach out, follow, like, all that. And thank you, Jen, for inviting me. I appreciate it so much.
My pleasure. Thank you, Kathryn.
Thank you. Bye, guys.